We have got breaking news, and it's a big one. The Firearms Policy Coalition and the Second Amendment Foundation have successfully won us a massive victory. I mean, this is a massive victory down there in Texas. Essentially, as you guys probably know, if you guys are carrying a gun and you're trying to go into the post office, you're not allowed to do that. And this is, on the face of it, blatantly unconstitutional. As you guys probably know, after Bruen, if they're going to impose a gun ban or any sort of gun legislation, the government has the burden to prove that there's a historical tradition of regulating a firearm in that manner. Obviously, there isn't in the case of post offices. You really can't find one. I think they looked for, I think it says in their actual reply, they looked to like a 1300 British law for this. So these guys were pretty desperate, and they weren't able to prove it ultimately that there was this historical tradition. This is unbelievably good. Just thinking about it logically, if you walk into a post office and you're not allowed to carry there, and you walk out of there and you're not allowed to carry there, that's an easy sitting duck, right? You're an easy sitting duck. You don't have protection. Everyone knows you don't have protection. And that's really bad, right? The reason that you're not allowed to carry a gun in an airport is because the government guarantees and provides you security, right? In the case of the TSA, in the case of air marshals. And that's the same in a courtroom in a prison, right? If you're a prisoner, the government has to protect you. If you're in a courtroom, the government has to protect you. And there's people there too. In the post office, no one's there to protect you. It's just like a little store somewhere. You might not even know necessarily where it is. And when you go in there, if you have a gun, it is against the law. And for a number of reasons, I mean, not least just the practical one, that is absolutely inconsistent with the history of firearms and the ability to carry firearms in the U.S. And it's also just immoral. You're taking someone's ability to protect themselves away, and you're not providing a substitute. So this is, again, massive win. And if you're a member of the Firearms Policy Coalition or the Second Amendment Foundation, this applies to you. It is an as-applied challenge, though. So if you're not one of these, it doesn't apply to you, but it does signal big things coming down the way. Again, this ruling has very specific scope. It is a permanent injunction. Obviously, they're going to appeal it potentially and fight against it. They might not with Pam Bondi, but you never know. But this is an as-applied challenge, so it does only apply to that class. But if you think about it, if they're not able to prove it in this case, they're probably not able to prove it for the rest of you. So if there is one of these test cases that comes up, I would imagine and predict that we'll probably win that too. So essentially, Chief Judge Reed O'Connor found that these regulations are completely, and obviously, if you just think about it for a second, inconsistent with the Second Amendment and the ability of people to protect themselves and the history of traditional firearm regulation in this country. Now, this opens the door to a lot of interesting things, right? Because if you can't prove this, you're not going to be able to do it in schools, right? People carried their gun to school when they were 16 back in the time of the founding. And many of these sorts of situations are going to start cropping up. There's a lot of places where people try to ban guns, concert venues, again, schools, various other places where the government basically says you can't carry a gun and we're not going to protect you. That obviously and logically contravenes every law of the Second Amendment we know. And there's no way a lot of these are going to hold up in court. And this is just the first instance. And this is, again, big sign of stuff to come. And it's a great sign of stuff to come. We want as many of these to be overturned as possible. And there's a lot of instances of this. And they're going to keep cropping up. This doesn't apply to everyone, though. So if you're not a member of one of these organizations, you might have a little bit of a problem if you're going to try and do it. I wouldn't recommend doing it, essentially. But it does lay that legal groundwork for us to eventually, and hopefully, I pray, overturn these rules for everybody. I understand if you're not a member of one of those two organizations being mad at this ruling. It makes sense. I'm not. I would love if it applied to everybody. But you have to remember, and this is something, one of the channels I watch a lot, which is 4Box Designer, and you guys should definitely subscribe, brings up a lot. This is, one of these common legal principles, which is that each one of these cases is just a brick in the wall. Without Heller, you don't have Bruen. Without Bruen, you don't have this. And without this, you might not have something else that comes down the road. We do have to, and this is something I see a lot of people commenting, this isn't what I want. I'm not a member of one of these organizations. How does this help me? It does help you. Each one of these rules stacks up and builds that wall against the Second Amendment that we're all looking for, and builds that protection, a protection against tyranny that we're all looking for. When you walk into any space at all, you should either be able to protect yourself, or the government needs to guarantee your protection proactively, right? TSA, court martials, all that sort of thing. And the reality is, obviously, when you look at it in any objective framework at all, that's not the case in post offices. Post offices are often just like little places you go, and there's just one or two people working there. There's no security. There's no nothing. And you're not allowed to bring your gun in. And if you do, they're going to take you to jail. That's ridiculous when you think about it. And I think this is one of these things in the Second Amendment we need to be more clear about. We are okay to some degree with sensitive places in certain areas, in very limited areas, like I said, airports. But when it comes to just large spread, wide gun bans in specific destinations, it's insane. Because let's say you need to go, drop your kids off at school, then you need to go to the post office, then you need to go to the grocery store, then you need to go to your work, then you need to come home. Well, you now like legally. You have to be unprotected the entire day because you can't bring your gun in and you're not just going to leave your gun lying around, right? So in all these ordinary places that you go every single day, it makes a huge, huge difference allowing yourself to have a gun. The other point that I think this brings up is how effective these Second Amendment organizations really are. Again, FPC, for me, most of my interaction with them is just, them posting funny reels and funny videos on Instagram. And I love that. And that, by the way, super important. It shifts the culture. It shifts general people's perception of how firearm law should be. And it's very, very important, don't get me wrong. But these organizations actually do serious legal fights, and they seriously win. And if you look at the history, since 2008, since Heller, we have been getting win after win after win after win. And we haven't gotten to that final destination yet, don't get me wrong. But these organizations are a massive bulwark for our freedoms, and I really can't praise them enough. But again, this is big breaking news. Banning people from peaceably carrying their firearms into an unprotected post office, and an ordinary post office, right? So this does exclude military bases and some other specific restricted post offices, like inside of other regulated buildings, right? But carrying a gun into a post office is obviously constitutionally protected and obviously a right you should have. And a federal district court judge agreed with us. And yes, it is an as-applied challenge. It doesn't apply to everyone for a variety of complicated reasons, involving standing. But this is absolutely a huge win, absolutely great news, and I'm just so excited for it. If you are new here, though, and excited about the win, please do subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. And if you're new, I thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.